Tonight, I'll share here my 2026 Paris Marathon story, after 10 years living with Parkinson's. If you haven't seen the video that explains why I wanted to run this marathon, you can find it here. Now, I'm going to tell you about my race. I've been preparing for 2 years. 3 years ago, I was a zombie with no fitness at all. I think I struggled to run more than 5 kilometers. So I started by aiming for a half marathon after a year of training. I ran the Geneva Half Marathon in 1:54, and this year, the goal was the Paris Marathon. So I signed up a bit too quickly, I admit. I hadn't realized it was far from easy. The route has some climbs, far from flat, but still it's not the toughest part. The hardest part is the time of year, early April. That means you have to train through the winter. In winter, there are viruses going around. And in early spring, hay fever shows up. So it's very complicated to do proper training in those conditions. Not to mention the cold and the slippery ground. Not to mention my kids and my job. So my training was a bit improvised. So, a week before the race, I learned the start would be at 10:19 a.m. instead of 900 hours. Even though I'd always prepared for a 9 a.m. start, especially when it comes to medication dosing, which is timed down to the minute. So I was a bit unsure about the idea of starting at 10:19 a.m. But anyway, in the end, we started at 11 a.m. with an additional 40-minute delay, so that completely changed everything. I didn't expect at all to be finishing around 2 p.m. That's a time when I'm normally at my best in terms of dopamine dosing. I improvised my meds on the spot. Of course, Murphy's Law hit again. It failed. So at the 25th kilometer, I found myself over-medicated, with my head like this. With dyskinesia. And it's not practical for seeing the road. Basically, I wasn't following the road anymore. I was following the other runners. It was a bit complicated. Plus, my esophagus cramped, so I couldn't swallow anything at all after kilometer 25. Around kilometer 30 or 35, I thought, just swallow a sip. I tried, but it stuck in my throat. So I ended up choking on the water in my own throat. And I collapsed right then. Miraculously, 2 Red Cross rescuers were there. Thank you. Bravo. Thanks to them. It was shocking. The sudden flare-up was incredible. So they moved me to the side of the road and let me come to. After 10 minutes, my head leveled out. I chose to walk on again with the Red Cross beside me. After 200 meters, I ran again, but 100 meters later, my head tipped back again. So I ended up running like that, holding my head up, alternating my left and right arms. It's not very practical for running. So I finished like that. And at the 39th kilometer, arriving in Paris, when I saw I was coming in with some difficulty, lots of people began cheering me on, shouting out loudly, "Go, Chris!" Actually, since the 25th kilometer, I had no idea what my legs were doing, because I was completely busy managing my head. I had no clue if I was okay or not. I wasn't hurting, just stuck in my head. So I didn't deserve, or need, that kind of cheering. I actually started walking again for a bit in the Bois de Boulogne, because I realized I was walking almost as fast as I was running, and it was a little less dangerous. When I got into Paris, the crowd encouraged me so much that I had to start running again. And then it was madness. They started yelling even louder, and because they were making so much noise, the crowd up ahead could hear the cheering. Then the whole street cheered, "Go Chris! Go Chris!" all the way for miles, giving me a de Gaulle arrival. Insane. Unbelievable. Bravo. Parisians. Never thought I'd say, "You rocked." Next time, cheer the others on. because I think I took too much support from the other runners. Some, most, must have suffered far more than I did, since I really felt great overall, except for my head problem. But it was awesome. I crossed the finish line, but I don't know my exact time, and it doesn't really matter at all. That's it. You know my whole race. Fun fact, I ended up in the ER anyway. I crushed my toes. Had to keep my head together, so I botched my feet. They hit my shoe tip and trashed my nails. Now I go to work in socks and slides. Great look. Well, that's life.